This is my first ever video for ASMR, but I wanted to start making videos where I learn by teaching you guys, if anyone watches, and that's like a way to help me study because I have an incentive. Okay, so to start off, we're gonna do what I learned in math class today. Okay, so this, we're learning, for any cuts, my family is very loud. Okay, measures of central tendency. The median. Okay, the median is the middle value or mean of two middle values. The values must be in order. But why do they have to be in order? You want them to be in order so that if you come across an even number of values, then you have to find the mean of those two values. So let's start off with example A. I'm sorry, the quality is like really bad. Okay, so here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we only have 5 different values. So that tells us that we do not need to find the mean of two numbers. So to find it, so an easy way to do that is you can cross off one, cross off the other side, cross that, and you're left with 5. Although because it's a very small set of numbers, you can very clearly see that it's 5, but with larger sets, you will have to do more work. Now, for example B, my god, the quality's bad. Goodness, okay. For here, we have an even amount of values. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 values. So cross out those two, we're left with these 2. So this brings me to mean, which we'll get to later. But you add these 2 together, and that results in 12. 5 plus 7 is 12. And then you have to divide that 12 by the amount of, like, the number of values that go into it, which gives you with 6 because you have 2 numbers going into it. 1, 2. Okay, now we'll go to mean next because that just makes sense based on what we just learned. Tapping on the whiteboard. Okay. Mean is the sum of values divided by the total number of values. This is also known as average. So an example of this is a larger set of numbers, which, as we talked about here you can see the center number, but here you would have to do a little bit more work in order to find the center. But let's do this. So the sum of values. From my calculator. So for the calculator, although I already have everything right now, I'm going to do this. Now I do not have the same kind of calculators that we use in math class, but this will work for some of it. So here you would do 13 plus 18 plus 13 plus 14 plus 13 plus 16 plus 14 again. Whoopsies. Plus 14 plus 21 plus 13. And that results in 135. So, now that we have the sum of all of these values, now, sorry, there's a train going by. We have to count how many of these there are. Now, I already counted. There's 15. So, we divide 135 by 15. So, let's do that. Divide it by 15. And that is 9. So, the mean of all these values would be 9. Now, let's go over mode. Mode is the value that occurs most often. Now, a set can have no mode or more than one. Now, how can it have no mode? That would be if every single value occurred only once or the same amount of times. So, an example here. We have 13, 18, 13, 14, 13, 16, 14, 21, and 13. 13 occurs the most. So that means that it is our mode. Now, say 13. So 13 appears 4 times. Let's say the number 16 appeared 4 times as well. That would mean that 16 is also a mode because none of these other numbers appear 4 times as well, which means that they can both be a mode if 16 also appeared that same amount of times. Now, let's talk about range. Range is the difference between the smallest and biggest values. So, here's our example. 13, 18, 13, 14, 13, 16, 14, 21, and 13. So, our largest number in our set is 21, and our lowest number is 13. So we subtract 13 from 21, and we get 8. 8 is our range. Now, sorry, let's discuss what an outlier is. Let's discuss what an outlier is. An outlier is a value that differs significantly from the others. So, let's write this down. Let's say we have 8. Oh, that's a really bad marker. It worked earlier. So we have 8, 9, 11, 12, and we suddenly jumped to 82. 82 would be the outlier because we have such a significant jump. Now, as my teacher explained it, sometimes when it comes to grading tests, say everyone else had their scores already graded. You might have some lower scores, such as like a 20%, but it ranges all the way from that to 100. But if a student has 0 because maybe they didn't take the test yet, then the teacher will knock that score out whenever it comes to gathering the average. So that would be the outlier. And these are all regular. So when getting accurate means sometimes people will knock the outlier out in order to not have it skew, which is the word you would use, skew the results. Okay, bringing in some new sounds here. Got this okay, so let's go over frequencies. Sorry if my family's really loud. Okay, so frequencies, right? I love frequencies because that integrates all of this into it. Frequencies have to do with statistics, which honestly sounds scary to me, but it's all a part of learning. Once you learn something, it's not scary anymore. What is a frequency table? A frequency table is a data organized tool. I can't remember my handwriting. That displays the distinct values or categories with the number of times, aka frequency, each one occurs. Yeah, I can read my handwriting, guys, I promise. Okay, let's look at this first. So I already did this, but I'm going to explain it. So this is a frequency put into a table, which makes it a little bit easier to understand. So let's look at this. The highest frequency would be 9, because obviously, as you can see on the frequencies of the table, no other number is as high as 9, which means the mode would be 2. As you can see, this is where we get the mode number from, but this is where we see how many times it occurs. Now over here, the mode would be 6. What do we think about down here? What are we thinking? Yeah. Okay. So this is finding the median from a frequency table. So let's think about this, okay? Finding the median. As we discussed earlier, it is the middle value. So we write down all of these numbers, which is so much work. As you can see, this is for that one, so don't worry about that yet. But this line of numbers right here goes to this table. as you can tell by my scribble, because I miscounted, because there's so many numbers, which makes this a little bit hard to understand. Now, my teacher did tell us that there is an easier way to do it, although I don't quite have a full grasp on it yet, but I'll try to explain it for you guys. But write down all of these, and then we reach the middle, and we get to 2 is the frequency. Now, keep in mind, just because something is the highest frequency does not mean that it will be the median. Now, it does mean that it has a higher chance of being the median, but that does not mean it will be the median. Okay, this one right here. Let's do this. Now, this is where we start crossing things out because there's so many numbers. And can you imagine doing this with your fingers? No. So, we take these and we land with 6, which does happen to be the highest frequency, just like that. But keep in mind, highest frequency does not equal median. Okay, so 6 for this is the median. Now let's turn to the next page. Here we're going to find the mean from a frequency table. So, in order to find the mean, you have to first. Okay, let me grab my whiteboard and my calculator so that I can do this with you guys. You know that you're probably not going to do this while you're watching my channel, but that is totally okay. Okay, let's get started. So, as we can see, we have these are the values and these are how many times it occurs. So, I am not going to write down all of that, but I'm going to write down how we can solve it. Okay, so this right here will be the sum. So you can add, now you can't add 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus but that's a lot to put into a calculator or to write down and calculate. So what we're going to do instead is put this into a calculator. 1, oh my goodness. I'm going to see if my other marker works better. Okay, so 1, 3 plus 2 times 9 plus 3 times 4 plus 4 times 2 plus 5. Now, because 5 only happens one time, we don't have to put it times a 1. Now, we can, but it won't change the result of it. Okay, so all of this winds up being 46. Now, I'll put it into my calculator so you can see. Okay, so 1 times 3 plus 2 times 9 plus 3 times 4 plus 5. And what the fuck? Guys, I put it in the calculator wrong. I double checked it. It's okay. We all make mistakes, we're human. Okay, so 46. Because as we can see, I'm going to double check myself here since I messed up the first time. 1, 3, 4 times 2 plus 5. Okay, we do get 46. I had to double check myself. And then you add up all these frequencies, and that equals 19. So we divide that by 19, and we get 2.421052632. But we don't want to deal with all these numbers, do we? Unless you're getting really specific, you don't want to deal with that. So I'm rounding to the 100th. So I put down 2.42. I don't really feel like doing this whole thing down here, but I hope you guys get the point. Yeah. I hope you learned something. But I do want to show off some of my super cool stuff. This is not education related. I just want to yap for a little bit, show and tell. And hopefully at this 3D print dragon, I had seen these everywhere, but this one's really cool. Its wings expand. I got this off of Amazon, by the way. It's so cool. Next, this is Armor Rouge action figure. I'm gonna tap on it. Okay. Armor Rouge action figure. Armor Rouge is the best Pokemon hands down. Zora. And then have this dragon. I got it from Michael's. The armor mesh, by the way, is also from Amazon. But I got this from Michael's craft store. So cute. Wow, the Leopold Funko Pop from Amazon. But it's from Black Clover. Leopold is a character from this show I really like called Black Clover. Oh goodness, I can't zoom out. Oh goodness. Oh, that's zoomed out as kids. Okay. Well, this is Leopold. And then he's got like a little grimoire there. I love it. My first ever fucklers recently. Look at this little dude. He's so silly. I clip onto my the belt loops on my pants. It's so cute. Oh, this big buckler. Oh, my school boulder just fell down my bed. My scratches have hurt it. Okay. But this is the buckler. It was an alley cat one, but I low-key liked the ears down better. So I just sewed them down. But it's so cute. I love this little guy. So silly. Yeah. This little guy from Pablo. Also, I got the big buckler from Target, and then I got the first keychain buckler from Fabulous. But let's all do from Fabulous. Okay, I want you to show you this. My finger goes all the way down to this dude's stomach. Look at that. Look at that. Okay, but I'm naming him Soap because the hair reminds me of Soap from Call of Duty. I love playing Call of Duty. Then this is an Asta figurine from Amazon. Asta is from the Black Clover anime. Okay, I want to say something about Black Clover. I love the show. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. But there are some weird characters on there. I just want to say, I don't like those characters. But anyways, these are his like demon swords. Pew, pew. Camera tapping. Or camera slashing, I guess. Wait, I want to do it like there's ASMR artists that do it so nice that I don't know how they do that. Man, I'm trying. Okay, let's talk about something else. I'm so sorry about the quality, but you're gonna have to deal with it if you're watching. It's my school bug. Okay, so I'm gonna start here because I don't really remember much further back. Okay, never mind, I do kinda, but not enough to teach. Okay, so we already did tests on all this, so like I'm not worried about studying it, you know. Okay, we're gonna start lesson 7.5. So World War I was called the Great War or the World to End All Wars. Mind you, no wars can end all wars. World War I was called the Great War or the World to End All Wars. Mind you, there's no such thing as a war to end all wars. You can't end war with war. That's contradictory. But what started the war? Okay, now these notes are just what I had given to me in class and what was on the board. So I'm sorry they're a little bit hard to follow, but I tried my best. Okay, so what caused the war? So I think this would be considered context. So militarism. Many nations built military in order to extend empire and defend it. Okay, so let's take America, for example. America during this time period was trying to extend its influence to other countries. And one of the countries was like Cuba, the Philippines, others, those are the ones I remember from class. But those are the ones that America tried to extend its influence to. And also America tried to take over some places simply because it would be a place to put up a military base, because the ocean is vast and large, and the Navy needs a place to like refill and stuff. Okay, next, alliances. Countries made secret alliances in order to keep other countries in check. That one's self-explanatory. Imperialism is wanting to extend influence to other countries. Pretty self-explanatory. Then there's anti-imperialism, which is being against that. Now, we will get to that eventually. Now, nationalism is believing that one's own country was the best. Why did the United States abandon its foreign policy of neutrality? Mind you, this is AP US history class. So this will be like all about the United States, really. Okay, so the war divided Europe into two distinct sides. The Central Powers, German Empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire, and Italy. The Allied powers are British Empire, French Empire, and Russia. That was just something extra I wrote down. Okay. The American entry into World War I. America had tried to stay neutral. It's not a war. But the preparedness movement was a movement, but that where people felt like, even though they didn't want to go into war, they wanted to be prepared for it still. So I'll read this too. The idea that regardless of how America feels about the war, something might happen that makes it impossible to work the other way. It supports mobilization. Sorry about the misspellings. I was typing this really quickly. So these are the events. The Lithuania, which was an attack on the ship. Germany was practicing unrestricted submarine warfare and ended up destroying passenger ship. What is unrestricted submarine warfare? Unrestricted submarine warfare is whenever a country shoots at anything that is like an enemy or related to the enemy. And America was one of those. So even though it was just a passenger ship, nothing dangerous, Germany still shot it because it was identified as an American ship. Next, the Zimmermann note, which was an intercepted telegram from Germany, which was supposed to be sent to the president in Mexico, but winds up in London. England then sends the message to the U.S. government. In the note, it tells the president of Mexico that if they join German and they win, they'll get back land they lost in the Mexican-American War. And I already explained that. So the U.S. enters the war. Wilson asked Congress for war. He said it'll make the war safe for democracy. Now again, please note that some of these are things that my teacher said, and I'm just kind of quoting them or paraphrasing them. What pivotal role did the United States play in securing the Allied victory in World War I? The United States was unprepared to go to war. The Selective Service Act, which is when anyone 18 or older had to register to go to the war. This is also known as the draft. Racial segregation occurred during the war. Units were segregated and led by white officers. And something I want to know about this is that like I smell like bed collapsed. So black people were sent to war, and some of them were given to the French army in order to boost the amount of people they had in their troops. But the French army gave them the highest medal of honor to these black people who went to war, because sorry, I started a new clip and I don't know where I left off. Yeah, so America sent black soldiers to the French army in order to boost their troops, and then the French army treated the black soldiers so much better than they were treated in America. And so whenever the black soldiers got back to America, they were like, this isn't good. I want change. Back to it. I went on a tangent there, but it was a worthy tangent. Next, the American Expeditionary Force, aka the AEF, is what the U.S. was called. It helps turn the tide of the war. And then, in detail, I wanted to add is that the doughboys is what American soldiers were called, because they weren't skinny and starving soldiers like the others, because America joined the war later, and so by the time that American soldiers reached the battlefield, everyone else was already skinny and starved. But the American soldiers saw it soon enough. They weren't fat, but they weren't bone. Okay, they weren't skin and bones. And then they surrender Armistice Day, 11/11/1918 at 11 o'clock. This day is now known as Veterans Day. Why did U.S. participation in World War I deeply divide the American opinion? The Big Four met in the world leaders of the Allied powers. They tried a treaty to end the war. some of these are paraphrased from my teachers, so keep that in mind. Wilson held onto his Wilson idealism that they were to end all wars. The Treaty of Versailles, the League of Nations, an international peacekeeping organization, so that countries can talk their problems out. That's what the League of Nations was. But this falls apart for World War II. Senate ratification is controlled by the opposing party. They don't want to be part of the League of Nations. The Senate rejects the treaty, making Wilson look bad. However, he predicted that if the U.S. didn't join the League of Nations, stuff would lead to another war. War civil liberties restricted during the war and beyond. Okay, so civil liberties and public safety is like a balance, like a scale. So it's supposed to be in balance, but it can shift towards public safety whenever times of war are happening. So civil liberties are guaranteed to the people through the Constitution and protected by the government. Civil liberties. Now, there's a distinction between civil liberties and civil rights. Civil liberties are guarantees to everyone. Civil rights are liberty issues when rights are not distributed evenly among everyone. World War I was a test of these liberties. Public safety versus civil liberties. A lot of violations of constitutional rights in favor of public safety during the war. Public safety means protection. Liberty means respect. Causes. Wilson has to get the American people to support the war. One of the ways he did this was silencing their voices against the war. This caused fear amongst people to speak up. This also led to the Red Scare. Okay. So the Spanish flu kills millions across the globe. People got exposed to illness from other places around the globe that have been exposed to illness. So there's little to no immunity. This leads to people fearing immigrants. And I'm unsure if you guys have learned this, but Native Americans were exposed to diseases that were given to them by colonists, and many died. Yeah. So not good, guys. We've seen what exposure to illness you have no immunity for has done in the past. So, yeah. Next. The Russian Revolution, which is the overthrow of a king, and Russia is now communist. People fear communism. So, the idea in people's minds is that if the whole government can be overthrown there, then it can be overthrown here in America. Next, high-profile bombings. These are bombs planted with the intent to kill people, such as in J.P. Morgan's office. Next, immigrants bring over ideas of other ideas of government. Gasp, how horrible! Or lack thereof. If they're anarchists, it's the lack of government. Radical ideas such as socialism, anarchism, and communism are brought over by immigrants. Next, effects. The effects of these unsettling events are the Red Scare. So the Red Scare is when people were fearing communists, okay? And they were looking for anyone to be a communist. You could basically just point at someone and say, they're a communist, and the government would take them away and put them in jail, possibly deport them. Okay, does that remind you of anything that's going on today, maybe? Espionage Act. Legal to say or do anything that may help America's enemy. That's what this makes it. And it makes it legal to say or do anything that may help America's enemy. Now, mind you, it could be anything, really. Even small things, as it here, like wishing for a family member to not get drafted is seen as helping the enemy. Why? Because wishing for a family member to not go die in the wars. You don't want another soldier to go help. How horrible. You care about your family? Next is the Sedition Act, which makes it legal to say or do anything critical of the war effort. Next is government enforcement. So Debs versus U.S. Eugene Debs was a leader of the Socialist Party. He's convicted of the Espionage Act. As you can see up here, we just learned about that. He pleads to the Supreme Court and loses. He's sentenced to 10 years in prison and then runs for president from his jail cell. Next is, I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Schneck versus U.S. Charles hello? Okay, it's spelled different. I don't know if it was a misspelling or not, but okay. We're gonna call him Charles. Charles hands out pamphlets to people, saying if they're drafted, then they shouldn't show up to the draft. The Supreme Court rules he doesn't have freedom of the press if what he's publishing poses a clear and present danger. Next, Palmer raids. Fourth and Fifth Amendment violations. People are accused of being communists with little to no evidence. Does that maybe remind you of something? As my teacher says, history doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. The Red Arc. Oh, this will also rhyme with what's going on today. The Red Arc. Americans are arrested and dragged out of their homes, and oftentimes deported to Russia. How did the federal government restrict immigration in the years following World War I? New immigration and nativism. Wartime and anti-German hysteria. As a result of this hysteria, the government required Germans to register as enemy aliens. Many American Germans had family in Germany still and didn't want to fight against Germany for that reason. Like, could you imagine, like, going to war? Like, imagine you're, like, a German living in America, and then you go to war, and then in that war, you see, say, a family member, like a cousin, that you used to know, and, well, you still know them, and you guys are, like, the best of buds. Could you imagine how to fight against them? Like, that's understandable. Also, a fun fact, well, it's not really fun, a fact, did you know that, like, say bratwurst, during this time period, people started calling them Liberty Dogs. Like, they changed, like, all that stuff just because they were, like, anti-German. Radicalism. That was a very short note. I guess the teacher moved on really quickly. So we're gonna move past that. Progressive pressure, eugenics. Okay. Labor unions tend to be anti-immigrant because they're undermining collective bargaining and the benefits unions are fighting for. So, immigrants were paid lower wage because minimum wage did not exist at this time. So immigrants would work for a lot less money than people who were born in America would. So they were like seen as a threat to jobs, and so unions rejected them because unions were fighting for higher wages and stuff. Immigration policy changes after World War I. The National Origins Act of 1924. This creates a quota system, as I learned about in a previous lesson. Why did the war contribute to migration in urban centers? Government, okay, again, the notes are kind of bad. Government is a wartime consumer. The government purchased a ton of artillery from factories. Many factories changed to produce these products, and new factories arise. Even women helped in the effort. This is huge. This caused societal norms of women to change, and women started to fight back and rebel against these societal norms. Like the cult of domesticity, it started to like wobble in its stability. Okay, people were like questioning it, which is awesome. How did the Great Migration change American society? So we're going to talk about push factors. African Americans are pushed out of the South due to Jim Crow laws and discrimination, lack of voting rights, Sundown, KKK, and other terrorist groups. And the only job that they were allowed in some places was a sharecropper. Pull factors. African Americans are pulled to the north, specifically cities. Wartime industries actively recruit potential black workers from the South. Country representatives are sent to the South to recruit black people to the north. And black citizens raise money for the war effort. $250 million. That was back then. Imagine how much that is now. That's a crazy amount. And black citizens did this because they wanted to show that, hey, we deserve equal rights too. Look at what we're doing to support you guys. The U.S. lends some black soldiers to the French who treat them a lot better, as I talked about earlier. There is no Jim Crow in the North at this time. Instead, it's de facto segregation. A massive migration occurs, which leads to pushback. The summer of 1919 is known as the Red Summer. Tulsa, 1921, black businesses were doing better than white businesses, so white people burned the places down. These are known as race massacres. They're riots, but black people fight back. And I'm so sorry for all the cuts my family's so loud. Okay, so this is the lesson we just finished today. This is 7.8 1920s. Cultural and political controversies. Urban life in the 1920s. More people live in urban areas than rural areas because more immigrants flood into the U.S. looking for a better way of life. Most settle in urban areas in Northeast and Northwest. If women had jobs at all, they were jobs that were nurturing. Remember, they called them sphere. I know you guys can look that up. I'm not dragging out my notes for that one. Nurturing like teachers, social workers, etc. But with the rise of industrial capitalism, women had new job opportunities. Women showed ankles, shoulders, and had short hair, smoked cigarettes, etc. Oh my goodness! These women were known as flappers. Flappers were women who really pushed the boundaries of societal norms. Societal roles for women changed during the war and after. Women who were flappers kept pushing against societal norms set for women. African Americans. Oh my god, I spelled that so wrong. The Great Migration. The AFL and black workers. Black workers were excluded from the American Federation of Labor. The AFL. This was because black workers were paid less than white workers. So the idea of letting people who were paid less into a union went against the union's goals. Henry Ford's $5 a day. At the time, this was a lot of money. So he gave workers a nice boost. Workers were less stressed because of this, and they made more money. Now, mind you, he was like really the only one that did this. Nativists in the 1920s. Nativist campaigns against ethnic groups. This means there's a rise of the KKK. After World War I, with a spike of immigrants, radical groups like socialists and anarchism, and the Great Migration, a second KKK came to be like reviving it. Reach and impact. It was more political and more organized. It was in states like Colorado and Indiana. Immigrants, black people, socialists, Italians, really just anyone who wasn't in the WASP, like, or who wasn't WASP-like or born in America. And the KKK was able to get laws passed. That's not good. I mean, obviously, but, you know. Clan marches on Washington. This was the largest march in Washington until MLK's I Have a Dream speech. Do you know how insane that is? I don't think you guys understand how insane that is. That's what my teacher said. Okay, that's insane. That is horrifying. That's, oh my god. Okay, back to it. Now the KKK eventually fell apart, but they were successful politically. How did African Americans find expression through the Harlem Renaissance? The Harlem Renaissance. Causes. Many black people moved to cities and began to share experiences of what it's like to be black in the South. This causes a rebirth of African American culture. Role of African Americans in World War I. Now, I already talked about this, but the French gave them the highest honor, but when black people go back home to America, they were treated horribly again. Now, I will not be saying that word because, but I did have to write that down for the sake of my notes. Alan Locke and a new form of assertion and having dignity that black people are not what white people say they are. It's forming a new identity. Black nationalist movement. Marcus Garvey, UNIA, and Back to Africa. Garvey himself is black. He believes that the only way for black people to not be oppressed is to go back to Africa. Like, his idea is that we'll never belong, so we need to go back to the one place where we'll be accepted. That's his idea. He creates the Black Star Line, which is a line of ships funded by black communities where black people could go back to Africa. However, the FBI takes him down for mail fraud and deports him back to Jamaica. He then goes to London and dies of stroke. Now, I want to note that the FBI targets him specifically because he's black. There were other ships that were doing the same thing, but the FBI did not care because it was ran by white people. But because he was black, the FBI targeted him. Now, the effects of the Harlem Renaissance are new art, new music, new literature, and relaxing racial tensions. Why? So, there were like black music clubs. So because of segregation, white clubs did not want black people in there. However, there were clubs that were, segregation, white clubs, black clubs. The black clubs would sometimes allow white people to come in there, and it was a place where, everyone could enjoy music and dancing and, just culture and stuff together. So that's kind of what that means. Why did a series of clashes between traditional values and new ideas create a culture war in the 1920s? new ideas. Urban America. Urban America is change occurs in cities, materialism and credit, so people aren't like resistant to debt, and materialism occurs because people have more money, so they're able to spend it on things that are not necessities. So say I previously was like in poverty and I could only afford to eat like meals and buying the necessities such as like clothes, food, whatever. But then suddenly I got a raise, and then I was able to afford this slug. That's basically materialism in a nutshell. Very simplified. Credit used to be looked down upon to be in any kind of debt. But now, and starting back then, that was actually seen as a norm. It became normal. Then, in urban America, resistant prohibition, secret drinking occurs. So, prohibition was a thing, but people would just start drinking. They didn't care. They resisted these laws. Religious modernism. The Scopes monkey trial is an example of this. Not following religion word for word. Next, rural America had traditional values. Things tend to stay the same. Oh, sorry about all the cuts. My family is like hella loud. Okay. So things tend to stay the same because of traditional values. People in rural America tend to hold on to traditional values. Frugality. So people are not as into materialism going into debt. Instead, they are like, we need the necessities and only the necessities. Next, they have more respect for the law. Now, in rural America, people were still making like moonshine and stuff, but they weren't like being aggressive with breaking the law when it comes to prohibition, like resisting prohibition. Instead, they were doing moonshine and they weren't secretive with it, but they weren't like being violent whenever people were like, hey, you can't do that. Next, religious fundamentalism. They took the Bible literally. It's all my notes that I'm going to show you. Okay, I hope you guys learned something, and I hope that this was a little bit relaxing. I want to figure out how to do some triggers while doing this, but I can't like hold my phone and do it. I'm going to see if I can find my earbuds because I need like a microphone rather than my phone, but I couldn't find it. But I'll keep looking. Okay, I hope you guys learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for tuning into my first video. If you watched it, if you didn't, well, that's totally okay. You're not listening to this anyway, so that's awesome. But yeah, I hope you guys learned something. If you watched, have a nice day, morning, evening, or night.